Greetings and welcome to our third session on the book of Ecclesiastes. A strange, difficult, important part of the wisdom literature of the Bible. It makes us look at things from possibly a different point of view. It challenges a lot of questions and assumptions. Ultimately, I see it as utterly realistic rather than impossible or pessimistic or anti-Christian. I don't see it as those things at all. It's utterly realistic about what the world is like and what living in the world is like and how wisdom and trying to understand and make sense works out in this world. God is there in it, behind it, through it, above it. You can't get away from God here. It leaves us ultimately with questions, and the only answer is to trust God. And that leads us fully into the New Testament, where Jesus appears and begins to answer some of these questions. But this is it's preliminary. It's a way in, it's a way of preparing people for the gospel by way of the wisdom which God gave to King Solomon and the way in which Solomon, as we say these days, reflected on life, on all that he saw, on all that he heard, all that he experienced. This is the reflections of a wise man on life. I've said we're not going to try and cover every verse. That wouldn't be easy or helpful, especially as I'm limiting this to 5 sessions. What we're doing today is looking at another of the powerful poems in Ecclesiastes. We looked last time at the Great Time for Everything poem, the first part of chapter 3. Today, a longer poem, which is the first half of chapter 7, chapter 7, 1 to 13. And we're looking at chapter 7, 1 to 14, which concludes that poem and gives just the advice that flows from it, ever so simply and sweetly. In my Bible, chapter 7 is headed A Disillusioned View of Life. Now, please, these headings are something that the translators or the editors have put in to help us to separate the text or for whatever reasons. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. I'm not sure this is a good heading, a disillusioned view of life. I might want to say realistic rather than disillusioned. You may say that puts me in the category of the pessimists. I hope not. I think we'll see where that leads. Chapter 7. I'm going to read verses 1 to 14. A good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of birth. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for this is the end of everyone, and the living will lay it to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by sadness of countenance the heart is made glad. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than to hear the song of fools. For like the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of fools. This also is vanity. Surely oppression makes the wise foolish, and a bribe corrupts the heart. Better is the end of a thing than its beginning. The patient in spirit are better than the proud in spirit. Do not be quick to anger, for anger lodges in the bosom of fools. Do not say, why were the former days better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask this. Wisdom is as good as an inheritance, an advantage to those who see the sun. For the protection of wisdom is like the protection of money. And the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom gives life to the one who possesses it. Consider the work of God. Who can make straight what he has made crooked? On the day of prosperity, be joyful, and on the day of adversity, consider God has made the one as well as the other, so that mortals may not find out anything that comes after them. I'm not going to ask whether this is a disillusioned view of life or a pessimistic view of life. I'll tell you what I think it means and what it's all about. The heart and the key of this is wisdom leads to patience. Wisdom doesn't seek to understand everything. Going that way leads to anguish because we can't. Wisdom leads to patience because in patience we are in the will of God, allowing that to unfold. We won't understand everything. We won't even understand the fullness of God's ways. We won't put right everything that's wrong in this world. We will love the good and we'll hate the evil, but we can't do a vast amount about it. Patience is the gift of wisdom. And me, that's a sort of summary. Can do much better than that, I'm sure. But let's go through these uh, difficult contrasts that each verse of the poem gives us. It's similar in a way to chapter 3, where each verse has a contrast. It's the same here, but the contrasts, I think, are a bit deeper and make you stop and think even more. A good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of birth. This is about what lasts, not what's uh, immediate for this moment and for the day. No, that there is a sense in Ecclesiastes that he's saying, enjoy your work as far as you can, enjoy what's good when it comes, uh, seize the day almost. But he's saying here there's something deeper than that. Precious ointment is today. It's being made up, dressed up. It's presenting oneself well to the world. A good name is much more long term. A good name is hard won and easily lost, as they say. A good name is the result of years of integrity and honesty and kindness and goodness and truth. That's what gives someone a good name. That's better than being dressed up and smart and smelling sweetly. And in that sense, too, the day of death better than the day of birth, because death forces reflection on a life lived. Birth is hopeful and joyful, but we don't know where it's going. Death looks back on the good name, on what's been done, on how love has been exercised, how wisdom has worked out. Verse 2, it's better to go to the house of mourning than to the house of feasting, for this is the end of everyone, and the living will lay it to heart. The house of mourning, we don't have that very much in our culture, the sense that for a period of time after a death, the family won't be left alone. There'll always be people there sitting with them, sitting alongside, maybe having nothing to say, but being there. I've been to houses of mourning in different cultures, in Africa and in the Far East, and seen them work. Maybe how they used to in Britain and the West, but I don't know, maybe differently. A sense that mourning is something that the community does together, and mourning is partly about caring for the bereaved, but mourning is partly about honouring those who've ended their time. It's serious. It's not necessarily full of tears, but it takes life seriously. Whereas the house of feasting, well, may or may not be serious. It's for a good time, and it's only for the day or for the night. It's a long-term view. It's not a disillusioned or pessimistic view, but it's a long-term view. It's honouring a life rather than having a fun knees up if you have to choose between the two. The heart of the wise, verse 3, sorrow is better than laughter, for by sadness of countenance the heart is made glad. Real joy, gladness of heart, not even using the softer, gentler, fun words, but gladness of heart comes from a place of sorrow. There's been depth, there's been reflection, there's an understanding that God is in his heaven and all is right with the world, even through the tribulations of life and through the loss of death. A sense that it's all right. God is in his place, unless the heart can be glad from a deep, deep place, not bubbly joyful from a shallow place. And so, verse 4, the heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. Same thing again. We learn from the silence of the house of mourning. We won't learn much from the house of mirth, of comedy, of show. 5, it's better to hear the rebuke of the wise than to hear the song of fools. Yeah. The house of mourning, of course, is a place where we hear and feel the rebuke of the wise. We honour a life that's been lived. We look at the goodness and the good things that may humble us, may shame us, but that's good. It's better to get that right. It's better to learn from what's happened and from a life lived. Now, this is all about wisdom. In one sense, Ecclesiastes will say the more wisdom, the more obvious it is that everything is vanity. But that isn't really the message. Wisdom tells you that everything is vanity. Now, here's how to counteract that to some extent. If everything feels like just a puff of wind, a tiniest breath of air, then stop and think. and be patient and take it seriously and take the longer view and see what's going on. Verse 6, for like the crackling of thorns under a pot, a dry, brittle, thorny wood burning, crack, crack, crack. You may well have heard that. We don't have many fires under pots these days, but you may well have heard that years gone by or seen it on films, the crackling of burning thorn twigs under a pot. That's what the laughter of fools is like. Crackle, crackle, crackle. This is vanity. Verse 7, surely oppression makes the wise foolish, and a bribe corrupts the heart. Yet there are things that can take away or despoil the wisdom which Ecclesiastes seeks after and enjoins on us. And we have to be careful. Oppression is one of those things, and bribery, corruption is another, and well, to be shunned and avoided. Better is the end of a thing than its beginning. The patient in spirit are better than the proud in spirit. Better the end than the beginning. Now, of course, we live in a world of excitement and anticipation. And anticipation is part of life. And there's joy in anticipation. And he's not saying don't do it, but the beginning and the excitement of the beginning and a new plan or a new player coming to a football team or a new government coming into post, there can be excitement and anticipation. What's going to happen? What will be? Or a visit of a long lost relative or friend, uh, or about to go on a trip or a holiday of some sort. Exciting anticipation, kind of empty because you don't know where it will lead. You can make plans and you can do your best to make sure it works out well, but realism tells you it may not. Things may go wrong, mistakes may be made, wrongs may be done, or things might just go wrong, as they sometimes do. The end of a thing, we reflect and we learn from it. The beginning of the thing, it's full of hope and anticipation, which is kind of what this world likes very much, as I suspect it was what Solomon's world liked. But it's not the same as seeing a project or a government or a footballer's career or something come to an end, and reflect on it and give thanks for what's been good and learn from what hasn't worked. All those things. There's a depth of wisdom and learning to go on here. He's not saying don't rejoice when a baby is born, only rejoice when someone dies. He's not saying that at all. He's saying a baby is born, rejoice, but you don't know where it will go. When someone dies, stop and think and listen and learn and grieve and understand that death is part of this world and see that pattern which we so often try to hide and just live for the moment or the joy and excitement of the moment. He's saying put it in context, put it in, see the wider picture. You remember when Jesus was born and a tiny little baby brought to the temple. Both of the two uh, older people who held the baby and prayed and blessed Simeon and Anna, both of them looked at the long-term future as well as the instant joy of knowing the Messiah. And if you go back and read again what they said, It's all there near the beginning of Luke's Gospel, Luke chapter 2. You'll find they're looking long term. It's not, oh, baby's born, joy, joy, which in itself is fair enough, but it's a depth of wisdom and thought and taking the long view. The patient in spirit are better than the proud in spirit. That's important, isn't it? Can we take that on board? Verse 9, do not be quick to anger, for anger lodges in the bosom of fools. Well, he's saying don't be overwhelmed by anticipation. Well, don't be overwhelmed by anger either. It lodges in the bosom of fools, and we don't want to be fools. Instant reaction, no, stop, think. So important. We're not to be like animals which might only be instinctive. We're to be, in modern language, reflective, thoughtful. Do not say, verse 10, why were the former days better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask this. Well, we don't actually know what the former days were like. We hear stories, we usually hear either the best or the worst of former days, and even the bad former days, days of war or so on. We will hear stories of bravery or endurance or courage or whatever, and we will not have a complete view of former days. It's not up to us to compare the present with the past. It won't help us. It's not from wisdom that you ask this. Wisdom, verse 11, is as good as an inheritance, an advantage to those who see the sun. Inheritance, again, this is long term. You may have an inheritance coming to you. It may be soon, it may be in a very long time. And we don't uh, look forward to it, but we are aware in the back of our minds that it might be there. It might be an advantage, a security, an encouragement, an enabler, but it's long term. Verse 12, for the protection of wisdom is like the protection of money. And the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom gives life to the one who possesses it. Wisdom and life and how they link and work together and with knowledge are quite complicated, but very much at the heart of Ecclesiastes. He's being thoughtful about stuff. Wisdom needs to be protected. Don't throw it away. Don't trivialize it. Don't spend your evenings getting drunk or just finding ways to laugh to block the world out. Learn from the world. Learn from what's going on. Seek knowledge, seek wisdom, because that actually gives life. That's where real life comes from a depth of understanding, from what the old Bible teachers used to call seriousness. Now, that doesn't mean looking glum, it means thinking, taking things seriously, learning from stuff, working out what we're going to do. Doesn't mean presuming we can control the future at all, but it means seeking to understand as far as we can the present and our place in it. Verse 13, finishing this poem, consider the work of God. Who can make straight what he has made crooked? We saw crookedness back in chapter 1, and it's part of the world, and we don't understand it. This doesn't mean morally crooked, uh, con men and thieves and rogues. It doesn't mean that. It means what isn't, in our view, straight or straightforward. What doesn't operate in the way we might want the world to operate. It might include illness. It might include unfortunate business enterprises that don't work out, losing one's money or savings. The chapters we've missed out, 4, 5, 6, are full of that. The sadness, the evil, he calls it, of people who invest in business ventures and lose everything. Well, the world isn't a sure place. The world isn't utterly predictable. And that's what verse 13 is saying. God has made a world, or the world as we have it, the world where we still acknowledge God as King, isn't as predictable, as straightforward as we might like it to be. Business ventures fail. Illness comes. Death comes suddenly and sometimes to people relatively young. If we try to make the world as we would have it, then by comparison, this world looks crooked. And can we make it straight? Can we abolish illness? Can we abolish natural disasters? Can we abolish the way that business ventures work, sometimes predictably, sometimes unpredictably? And that's nothing to do with modern capitalism. He's talking about exactly the same problems. You invest in something and it succeeds or it fails. That's the ancient world just as much as the modern world. The world isn't straight in that sense. The world is crooked. This doesn't mean the world is immoral or wrong, although uh, crookedness is related to brokenness, and the brokenness of the world. This is a big, long theological argument, but the brokenness of the world is due in large part to mankind's sin and rebellion against God. But it's there. We live in a broken world, and we worship our God, who is God of this world, while we acknowledge that the world is broken and in some ways crooked. Now, this is fairly deep wisdom. This is a reflection when he's looking, as it were, from the house of mourning and looking from towards the end of his own life, but reflecting on other people he's known and situations, a deep sort of end of life wisdom. The world isn't straightforward, and we can't make it so. It's the work of God to do that, not our work. It's actually going to need a new world, isn't it? The hint is there pretty strongly. So, where does this poem lead us? Well, on the day of prosperity, be joyful. On the day of adversity, consider God has made the one as well as the other, prosperity and adversity, so that mortals may not find out anything that comes after them. It's back to God has put into the hearts of man eternity or knowledge of past and future. When we think about it, we can enjoy what's good on the day it's good, and that is great, and we should. Joy is a gift from God, and gladness is from Him. And on the day of adversity, we don't despair, we don't become pessimistic, we don't say all is doomed, it can't work out. We become humble and say adversity as well as prosperity is from the Lord, is part of the way He is working in this world. And part of the reason is so that we can't predict the future. The future is not going to be straightforward because adversity will come as well as prosperity. And they don't just apply to financial affairs, it's the whole of life. We prosper or we don't. and it's not always predictable because God is in charge, but God isn't telling us all that He's doing. Ultimately, we have to trust Him, and that will lead us further into the book. And of course, it will lead us into the New Testament to find exactly how and in whom, how in Christ we can trust God for the present and for the future. Amen.